My sister slapped my 7-month-old son across the face at Christmas dinner, and my entire family just sat there. They didn't check on him. They didn't gasp. They just looked at me, waiting. Waiting for me to apologize. Waiting for me to smooth it over. Waiting for me to make everyone comfortable again, like I'd been doing my entire life. But this time, I didn't move. My husband did. Owen pushed his chair back slowly. The kind of slow that makes a room go quiet before anyone says a word. He looked my sister dead in the eye and said one thing, "Get out." That's when I knew everything was about to change. And honestly, I'd been preparing for this moment my whole life without even knowing it. Let me back up. I learned how to disappear long before I understood what the word meant. I was 10 years old, standing at the far end of my grandparents' dining room, right next to this old wooden chair with a faded seat. Everyone called it the extra chair. I called it mine. From that spot, I watched my sister Cassidy work the room. She was 2 years older, louder, and somehow always had the spotlight following her around. My mom would fuss over her hair, adjust her collar, tilt her chin up just right. There. Perfect. If I stepped forward to get in the family photo, Mom would gently guide me back with this practiced smile. "Let your sister shine, Audrey." My dad never said anything. He'd just fiddle with the camera settings, pretending he didn't see me standing there. Pretending he didn't hear that chair scrape across the floor as I sat back down, alone at the edge of everything. That's where it started. Or at least, that's the first time I really felt it in my bones. When I brought home an award from school, Cassidy accidentally spilled juice all over the certificate. You know what my mom did? She rushed to comfort Cassidy. Not me. Cassidy. She didn't even check if I was upset. She just said, "She didn't mean it, Audrey. You know your sister is sensitive." Sensitive. I heard that word more than my own name growing up. Anytime I hesitated, anytime I questioned something, anytime I just existed at the wrong moment, there it was, "Your sister is sensitive." My dad's go-to line was different but just as effective, "Don't make this bigger than it is." That sentence followed me through my entire childhood. Close. Unavoidable. Flattening. I remember one time in 8th grade, I made the honor roll. Straight A's for the first time ever. I was so excited I practically ran home from school. I burst through the door waving the paper, and my mom looked up from the couch where she was sitting with Cassidy. "That's nice, Audrey," she said. Then she turned right back to Cassidy. "So you were saying about the audition?" I stood there in the doorway, arms still raised, that paper suddenly feeling heavy. My dad walked past me to the kitchen. Didn't even glance at it. That night at dinner, Cassidy mentioned she'd gotten an AB on a test she thought she'd failed. My parents acted like she'd won a Nobel Prize. Celebrated. Made her favorite dessert. Asked her all about it. I never brought home another award after that. What was the point? As teenagers, the gap got worse. When Cassidy wanted concert tickets, I was told to hand over the money I'd saved from babysitting. "You're good with planning," Mom said, like being responsible was just something I owed them. Like it was my job to fund Cassidy's fun. When I needed a ride to work on a school project, they forgot. Twice. The third time, my dad just said, "Ask your sister." Cassidy had already left with her friends. I kept thinking it would get better when I turned 18. Like adulthood would somehow break the pattern. It didn't. At holiday dinners, Cassidy's stories filled the entire table. If I spoke, someone interrupted. If I disagreed with anything, the whole room would stiffen. "Audrey, you're reading too much into things," Mom would say. And just like that, I'd get the message, "Shut up before everyone turns on you." So I did. For years. I moved out, built my own life, found my own rhythm. Met Owen in a coffee shop when I was 26. He was the first person who actually listened when I talked. Really listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't dismiss. Just heard me. When I introduced him to my family, I watched how they treated him compared to Cassidy's boyfriends. Polite but distant. They asked him surface questions but never really engaged. Meanwhile, they'd spend hours talking to Cassidy's latest guy about his band or his startup or whatever. Owen noticed. He didn't say anything that night, but later, in the car, he asked, "Do they always do that?" "Do what?" "Act like you're not quite part of the family." I'd never heard anyone say it out loud before. I started crying right there in the passenger seat. Not sad crying. Relief crying. Because someone finally saw it. But that old programming stayed with me even after I moved out, even after I got married. Step back. Soften your voice. Don't disturb the balance. Don't make waves. Protect everyone but yourself. I didn't fully understand what that silence had cost me until Oliver was born. The night it happened, Christmas dinner was supposed to be perfect. That's what my mom kept saying all week. It'll be perfect. She'd gone all out with decorations, the good china, the works. And Cassidy? She'd set up her ring light and camera because she was filming content for her social media. Because of course she was. Oliver was fussy. He's a baby. Babies get fussy. He was 7 months old, teething, and the bright lights and noise were getting to him. I was trying to calm him down, bouncing him gently, speaking softly. That's when Cassidy snapped. "Oh my God, Audrey, can you just get him to stop? You're ruining the whole vibe." I looked at her. "He's a baby, Cassidy." "Yeah, well, you're the one who can't control him." My mom chimed in from across the table. "Maybe take him to another room, sweetie? Just until he settles down?" I felt it then. That old familiar pressure. Make yourself smaller. Remove the problem. Disappear. But before I could stand up, Oliver let out another cry. And that's when it happened. Cassidy reached over and slapped him across the cheek. Not a tap. A slap. The sound cracked through the room. Oliver's cry shot up, then dropped into the shocked silence. He didn't understand what had just happened. Neither did I, for a second. I stared at the red mark blooming on my baby's face. My hands started shaking. Then I looked around the table. My mom was frozen, fork halfway to her mouth. My dad was staring at his plate. Nobody moved. Nobody said anything. They were waiting for me to fix it. To smooth it over. To apologize for making things awkward. I opened my mouth, and for just a second, I felt that old instinct kick in. Say sorry. Make it better. Keep the peace. But I didn't move. Owen did. He stood up slowly, deliberately. He walked around the table and stood right in front of Cassidy. His voice was quiet, calm, and absolutely final. "Get out." Cassidy's mouth dropped open. "Excuse me? You heard me. Get out of this house. Now." I barely touched him. Audrey's being dramatic, she always. "Out, now." Owen didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. My mom finally found her voice. "Owen, let's not overreact." "I'm sure Cassidy didn't mean." "She slapped an infant," Owen said, still not looking away from Cassidy. "There's nothing to discuss. She leaves, or we do." The room went dead silent. For the first time in my entire life, I watched my sister look around the table for backup and find none. My parents just sat there, torn between their golden child and the reality of what had just happened. Cassidy grabbed her purse and stood up, her face red. "You're all going to regret this," she muttered. She looked at me with pure hatred. "You're pathetic, Audrey. Always playing the victim." Then she left. The door slammed behind her, and the sound echoed through the whole house. I just sat there, holding Oliver, watching that door like I was waiting for someone to rewind the last 5 minutes and tell me I'd imagined it all. I didn't stay long after that. I took Oliver upstairs to the hallway, away from everyone, and just held him. The red mark on his cheek was already fading, but I could still see it. Still feel the shock of it. My mom came up first. She stood at the top of the stairs, wringing her hands. "Audrey, honey, let's just talk about this." Cassidy was stressed. The holidays are hard for her, you know how she gets. "She hit my baby," I said. My voice sounded strange. Flat. She didn't hit him, it was barely a tap. You're being a little sensitive, don't you think? There it was again. Sensitive. Mom, look at his face. She glanced at Oliver, then quickly looked away. It's barely red. He's fine. But if you keep making a scene, you're going to ruin Christmas for everyone. I stared at her. Really looked at her. And I saw it clearly for the first time. She wasn't going to protect my son. She wasn't even going to acknowledge what happened. She was asking me to pretend. To go back downstairs and act like everything was normal. Like I always did. I'm leaving, I said. Audrey, come on. Don't be like this. I stood up, Oliver against my chest. I'm leaving, Mom. I walked past her down the stairs. Owen was already waiting by the door with our coats and the diaper bag. That's when Cassidy found me in the hallway. She came down the stairs slowly, arms crossed, that familiar tone already in her voice. The one she used when she wanted to win without looking cruel. You made a scene, she said. Honestly, Audrey, you're overreacting. Again. Again. That word hit me like reopening an old wound. I didn't answer. I just held Oliver tighter, feeling his breath against my shoulder. Silence usually ended arguments in our family. Silence meant surrender. Cassidy was waiting for it. When I didn't give her what she wanted, she sighed loudly. You know Mom agrees with me. She said you're too emotional to be taken seriously. My throat tightened, but my face didn't move. Years of practice. Cassidy stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was doing me a favor. If you want this family to stay normal, Audrey, stop turning everything into drama. You embarrassed us. Us. Like I lived on the outside of a door they kept closing. I shifted my weight, feeling the wall against my back. For a moment, I just listened. To the distant sound of dishes clattering downstairs. To someone laughing in the dining room. To Oliver's slow, steady breathing. Then I looked at her. Not with anger. Not with fear. Just clarity. She blinked, confused. You heard me, right? She asked. I heard you, I said. My voice was steady. Calm. Final. Something changed in her expression. She didn't know why my silence felt different this time. She only knew it didn't bend. When I walked away, she didn't follow. She didn't understand that the moment she called me dramatic, that script they'd been writing for me my entire life finally started to dissolve. I didn't break. I didn't snap. I just stopped shrinking. We left that night. I bundled Oliver against my chest, and Owen walked ahead with the diaper bag. The cold air hit us as soon as we stepped outside, sharp and clarifying. Owen didn't speak during the drive home. He didn't need to. His silence wasn't avoidance. It was support. And I felt it. Once we got home, I laid Oliver in his crib. He was already drifting off, his tiny fist opening and closing. I watched his chest rise and fall for a long moment, then I stepped back into the hallway. Something inside me clicked into place. I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I didn't replay the slap over and over in my head. I moved. In the living room, I grabbed my phone and opened a blank note. My thumbs hovered for just a second, then I started typing. December 25th, 7:14 p.m. Oliver slapped by Cassidy. I added every detail I could remember. The angle of the ring light. How far we were from the table. The exact moment his cry stopped. What everyone said. What they didn't say. I wrote it all down, clean and factual. Then I opened my camera roll and found the photo I'd taken in the hallway. Oliver's cheek. The faint red mark. The soft light catching the outline. I saved it to a folder labeled Oliver Health Notes. This wasn't about anger. This was about precision. About protection. Next, I opened the family group chat and started taking screenshots. My mom's dismissive text from last month. Cassidy's messages about her filming schedule. My mother telling me not to ruin the vibe with my concerns. Every casual dismissal. Every time they'd minimized what I felt or what I needed. Each screenshot went into its own labeled folder. Then I created a spreadsheet. One tab for timeline. Another for witness observations. Another for communication logs. I was organized. Methodical. Clear. Owen came into the room and set a mug of tea down next to me. He looked at the screen, at the folders, at the photo of Oliver's cheek. He didn't ask what I was doing. He just said, "Take your time." Then he stepped back and gave me space. I kept typing. I pulled up medical records from Oliver's pediatrician visits, feeding schedules, temperature logs, weight checks, development milestones. Not to weaponize them, to protect him, to show the truth without raising my voice, to build something solid enough that no one could call it overreacting. The clock hit midnight. I kept going. I opened my billing folder and cross-referenced dates with conversations. I was looking for patterns I'd ignored out of habit. Proof that I'd been doing all the emotional labor of this family for years while being treated like background noise in my own life. Finally, I created one last tab, recommendations. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't vindictive. It was just a list. Steps forward for Oliver's care. Communication boundaries. Safety measures. Truth. Then came the hardest part. I drafted an email to a legal advisor I'd contacted once before during a maternity leave issue. I wrote it carefully, reading every sentence twice. It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't a threat. It was documentation. Neutral. Steady. Factual. I attached everything. The folders. The timeline. The photos. The communication logs. My cursor hovered over the send button. I thought about what this meant. Once I sent this, there was no going back. This wasn't just standing up for myself at a dinner table. This was creating an official record. This was drawing a line so clear that no one could ever blur it again. I took one deep breath and pressed send. The whoosh sound of the email leaving felt like a door closing. Not loud. Just final. Owen leaned against the doorway. "You sure?" "Yes," I said. "I'm done being the only one who remembers what actually happened." He nodded. Came over and kissed the top of my head. Didn't try to talk me out of it. Didn't question whether I was overreacting. Just supported me. That's when I knew I'd married the right person. A few days later, my mom called. She wanted a family talk. Her voice on the phone was clipped, defensive. She didn't ask how Oliver was doing. Didn't ask how I was doing. Just said we needed to clear the air. We went back to the house. Owen carried Oliver in his car seat, and I kept my coat on. The air inside still smelled like cinnamon and something metallic I couldn't place. The ring light from Christmas dinner was on the floor, unplugged, legs sprawled out like a broken spider. Cassidy was already at the table, arms crossed. Expression rehearsed somewhere between offended and innocent. My mom hovered behind her like a shield. My dad was standing near a chair but not sitting, watching Owen with this wary look he'd never had before. "Audrey," Mom started, "we all think you misunderstood what happened." There it was. The familiar script. Before I could answer, Cassidy jumped in. "You made everything worse by sending that email. You blindsided us. Do you know how that made us look?" I looked at her, then at the table. The same table where my baby had been slapped. The same table where everyone had just sat there in silence. Owen didn't sit down. He put both hands on the back of a chair. I could see the tension in his arms. Controlled. Contained. "We're here so everyone can hear the truth," he said. Mom scoffed. "The truth? Audrey has always been." She stopped when Owen straightened up. He wasn't a man who used volume. He used presence. And right now, the room felt smaller because of it. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. I placed it on the table. No drama. Just paper, photos, timelines, screenshots, notes. Everything organized and unemotional. My dad frowned. "What is this?" "Documentation," I said quietly. "Since none of you looked at him that night." Cassidy rolled her eyes. "You're blowing this completely out of." Owen cut her off. His voice was calm but sharp. "She slapped an infant." The words landed heavy. Silence rippled through the room. I opened the first page. A photo of Oliver's cheek, the red mark still visible under the hallway light. "This was taken 10 minutes after dinner," I said. "I sent it to a pediatric specialist. Her assessment is attached." My mom's face went tight. "Audrey, you didn't have to escalate this." "I didn't," I said. "The system did." I slid another page forward. My notes. The risk assessment. The guidance from the legal advisor. Documentation that now existed outside the family's control. "This isn't about punishing anyone," I said. "It's about protecting my child." Cassidy's chair scraped loudly as she stood up. "You're making me look like a monster." "No," I answered. "I'm showing what happened." Her eyes flashed. "You're pathetic, Audrey. You always need to be the victim." Before that old ache could rise in my throat, Owen stepped forward. Slow. Steady. "Enough," he said. Cassidy's mouth opened, ready to fight back. He didn't give her the chance. He looked her dead in the eye, the same way he had on Christmas night. "Get out." The room froze. My mom gasped. My dad's jaw twitched. Cassidy stood there, caught between rage and disbelief. "You can leave," Owen added, "or we will." The power shifted so quietly it felt like a change in temperature. For the first time in my life, I watched my sister search the room for someone to defend her and find no one willing. She grabbed her purse, muttering under her breath, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Wouldn't look at the folder. Wouldn't face the truth. She walked out without looking back. The door clicked shut softly. A small sound with the weight of an ending. I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 30 years. My mom spoke first, her voice shaking. "Audrey, what happens now?" I closed the folder. Now, the rest is in motion. And for once, it's not my job to fix it. My dad finally spoke. "You're really going through with this?" "I already have," I said. "This isn't a threat. It's protection. For Oliver. And honestly, for me too." Mom's face crumpled. "But we're family." "Family doesn't mean accepting abuse," I said. "Not anymore." We left after that. No hugs. No promises to call. Just a clean exit. We drove home in silence. Oliver slept the whole way, his little breaths fogging the edge of his blanket. Owen kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting near mine. Not touching. Just there. At home, I carried Oliver into the backyard. The winter sun was low and soft, warm enough that it didn't feel empty. I set him down near the patio, and he pulled himself up on the wooden bench, wobbling, determined, pure. He laughed. A small, bubbling sound. New. Untouched by anyone else's expectations. I sat beside him, letting the moment stretch. For years, I'd confused silence with surrender. I'd learned to step back, to make myself small, to keep the family intact at my own expense. But watching Oliver steady himself on shaky legs, I understood something simple and final. Silence only hurts when it belongs to someone else. When it's yours, it becomes something different. A boundary. A beginning. The folder I'd closed at my parents' house was still sitting on the kitchen counter. Untouched. No frantic calls. No desperate apologies. Just space. Open. Clean. Waiting. Cassidy never came back. The thought settled without bitterness. Not celebration. Not sorrow. Just truth. A clean line drawn where chaos used to be. The wind moved through the yard, brushing Oliver's hair as he took one small, unsteady step toward me. I held out my hands, but I didn't pull him close. I let him find his balance on his own. In that quiet moment, something finally let go. Something I'd been carrying since I was 10 years old, standing next to that faded wooden chair at the end of a long table. For the first time, the silence felt like mine. The yard grew quiet as the last bit of daylight slipped away. Oliver watched me with wide, clear eyes. I breathed in the cold air, letting it fill the spaces where fear used to live. The past didn't vanish. But it didn't control me anymore. Families break in loud ways. But they also break in silence. And sometimes, that silence becomes the first honest sound you finally hear. Boundaries aren't revenge. They're the place where your life actually begins. Thanks for listening. If you liked this story, share it with others who needs to hear it. And don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice when everyone else wants you silent. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop making yourself small for people who never made room for you anyway.